Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the introduction of another add-on from Blender's collection. With this new add-on, you can perform the task of covering your models. Often covering models is like camouflaging our items or objects. It's about camouflaging our 3D models in environments like war zones, or even vacuum sealing some objects to give our work a very fancy, fantastical look. We can define a mummification-like state for our models using this vacuum form, okay? So how can we use this vacuum feature? The system for this vacuum works like this. It first recognizes the model. I first defined this specific model for it. I tell it to create a box, and it then generates a large box around the model. Then we apply the vacuum. Now, I'll go back and explain all of its parameters to you. We apply a vacuum, and we must apply our remesh. Then we remesh, and we must apply our remesh. We specify our fabric type, ensuring it's silk. We add it. When we apply add cloth, it assigns a fabric property to the vacuum we created. This way, it vacuums around our object. See? The object is now vacuumed. Now, this was a very simple model. Imagine you have a mummy model. You can vacuum it this way. Now let's consider a war object. For example, these ammunition boxes. We want to vacuum these. Similarly, I first click Create Box. It automatically creates a large box around the model. Then I'll say the vacuum model comes and creates a vacuum. You see, at this very stage, it creates a vacuum. You see, at this very stage, we can stop the vacuuming process and the rest of the steps. We see this part is good. This section is okay. We can stop here and not continue. But if you want to continue and have that fabric-like state on it on our model, then click on Apply Shrinkwrap. Once it's applied, then we click Remesh. Then we click Apply Remesh. Later, I'll explain how to prevent it from going into the model like this. I will fully explain these parameters. I click Apply Remesh. And finally, I click Add Cloth. When we click Add Cloth, our fabric model takes on the properties of clothing. And like a piece of clothing, it gathers around our cover, around our box. This way, it gathered around our box. But now, what happened here? Let me make this a little smaller. It went into our model, meaning it went into our collision. How can we define these parameters? I'll click Remove so it gets deleted. Then I'll click Create Box again. This time, before we actually click Vacuum to Model, we'll click Shrink Offset, meaning we'll give some offset to this model that will sit on our collision. I'll put the number 1 here and vacuum it. When I vacuum it, it creates a large model. In the next step, I'll tell it to increase its voxel size value. Actually, its value should become smaller, so that the number of our meshes increases. So I'll set this to, in fact, 0.02, and then I'll hit Add Rim. This is the prior step. When we hit Add Rim here, you see it didn't go into our collision. It didn't sink into our main box. Let this model remain silk. And then again, let this model remain silk, and we'll hit Add Cloth again. Here, I'll apply Remove again, then Add Cloth. Don't forget that when the voxel size number decreases, the time it takes to create the cloth effect on your model increases slightly, compared to when the number is larger. So it took a bit longer here, but look, it gave us something much cleaner. This is it for now. Let's continue and see what parameters we have. I'll clear this again and explain the next parameter. Now you understand Shrink Offset, which adds some distance from our model. But Shrink Offset's only job isn't just to add distance to our model. Another thing it does is that it can consider our fabric to be a larger piece. Naturally, when I click Create Box and I enter the number 2, this number. Let me change its number to 2 again. When I enter 2, it offsets and takes a bit more distance from our model. The fact that it takes more distance means that more fabric is being used. So I'll apply vacuum, and we have a larger model here. Let me increase the model here, set it to 3. I'll create a box here and set the offset to 3. This offset of 3 means that the higher the number, the more wrinkles it will create later on. Then I'll click Apply Shrink here. I'll click Remesh again with the same value, 0.02. And here again, I want to click the Add button. Before I click the Add button, let me explain a few parameters here. One is cloth mass, which is the fabric's weight or its drape. It specifies the fabric's weight or its drape for us here. The higher the number we have, the more draped the fabric will be towards the ground. And the fabric stretches more. We have pressure. The more positive and larger the pressure value, the more it inflates. And the smaller the number, or if we have a negative value, it contracts and takes on that vacuum state. I've set the pressure to -50 here to achieve that vacuum state. I also set the simulation frame to 30, meaning 30 frames will be simulated. I've also set the collision distance and collision quality to 20 here, so it can detect our main collision with good quality. I'll add a mesh again here, and then add the close. We'll wait a few moments for the changes we made here, like the shrink offset, to be applied to our model. Well, it didn't even take more than 2 or 3 seconds. Now the model we have here, you can see gave us a model with more drape. Okay, if you want your model's drape to be more pronounced than it is now, increase the cloth mass a bit. For instance, I'll set it to 5 here. I'm using a very high number so you can clearly see the difference. I'll enter 5, click Add Cloth, and that was a mistake. Let's go back. Oh, I didn't check the box. I wasn't careful. And this same number, 5. The cloth mass is 5. Look here as well. And naturally, if we change the fabric type, we'll see different forms and different reactions. The fabric's form heavily depends on the drape defined here. Look here now. See the drape of this bottom part? See how much more it sagged underneath? This part's drape also increased. You see, these parts sagged more, and that's because of the mass section.
So by adjusting these parameters, you can define the form of your fabric or your plastic.
Let's go and see a few examples that I have prepared beforehand to explain what differences actually exist. Together, this is the same box placed on a ground. You can also define a ground for it, meaning when you click Use Flow and then Pick, you can define the ground as a collision. As I mentioned, the larger your voxel density, the lower the quality it will provide you, because its mesh is larger. And it doesn't give us good details, but it slightly increases the cloth simulation time. This number is 0.04. This number is 0.03. Details are getting better. This number is 0.02. The detail became even greater. This is the same 0.0 model, and this is the 0.01 model. I also gave it a fabric material here. You can see 0.01, for which I also defined a ground collision. So much for that. Now, let's look at the materials together to see what differences the various types have. I want to show you how much shrink offset can affect our model. Look here. It's with several different meshes. Mesh 0.1, 0.5, 1, 3, 0.513. If you look at the materials, there isn't much difference. Even if we change the fabric types and don't adjust the shrink offset value, you'll see the fabric types. There isn't much difference in them, meaning they all look similar. But when we define the fabric type for it, we also increase the shrink offset value. Now, let's see together. See how much difference it made? Here, the fabric type is paper-like, meaning that model's material is paper-like, and the shrink offset is 0.05. Then it became 0.1. You see, it's taking shape. Then it became 0.05. It's still taking on a better shape than the fabric preset we specified for that model. But now we want to see an even better result from it. Silk fabric is a good preset. But here we can see silk with a shrink offset of 1/100th, which means 0.01, and a voxel size of 5/100ths, or 0.05. See how it turned out here. Now we're going to change its value a bit. That means we'll change the offset. I'll show you the number here so you can see it for yourselves. We're changing its value here. I've changed its offset value, and I've changed its voxel size value. That means I've lowered the voxel size value and also increased the offset value. Look at the fabric quality. In silk mode, it became more gathered and added more wrinkles to the design. And that plastic vacuum effect is showing itself very well here. It's showing itself well here. Okay. Now, if this issue becomes a bit exaggerated, meaning the shrinking offset, instead of 1 point, let's actually set it to 0.5. Our model will become very crumpled in this way, really very crumpled. It's plastic because we set a very negative value for the vacuum, so it would have pressure and gather. It has crumpled in on itself like this. To have a cleaner definition of the model, I had added a subdivision here to get a better definition. And also, I set its voxel size to 0.01 here, so it can show us the details very well. Now, if you recall, I told you that if you don't define the shrinking offset for it, and its value isn't a good normal number, the fabric types won't differ much from each other. But here, we reduced the shrinking offset, and now we can see the difference between silk and denim in the fabric types we have. Finally, let me tell you that setting a small voxel size isn't always necessarily good. It depends on your project, which number you choose to get a better result. I hope this effect and its application will be very useful for you, and that you can use it well.